Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today we're getting in the Christmas spirit and making a holiday card with Newton's Nook designs. Now these kitties are just so cute and the lights are vibrant and seem to really shine. So for this card I'm going to use two of the Newton's Nook designs stamp sets. This one is called A Kittens Christmas and the second one is Holiday Lights. Now I do have the die set for Holiday Lights as well. Now I'm going to start with a black panel that's 3.5 by 8 inches and some Christmas twine. Now my finished card size is 3 3/4 by 8.5, but you could always adjust this for the size that you prefer. Now I'm going to adhere some of my tacky glue or PVA glue onto some random spots on my card back and just put my acrylic blocks on top so that the string stays still until it's completely dry. Now this glue that I'm using is from Hobbycraft and it takes a couple hours to dry. If you prefer, you could always use a hot glue instead. I'm just going to make sure there's lots of glue so it's nice and secure, and then I'll set this aside to dry. Now once it's dry, I'm going to flip it over to the back and use a bit of washi tape just to adhere the ends. And when I glue this to my card base, those ends will be completely hidden. So now I'm going to stamp my main image with some Tuxedo Black Memento ink. I'm using the kitten that's tangled in Christmas lights, but there's lots of fun kittens to choose from. Now once this is stamped, I'm going to fussy cut it with some sharp scissors. Now one of the great things about these stamps and all of Newton Nook design stamps is that you can customize it for the recipient of the card, so you can use the colors of their cat if they have one. I'm going to use 2 different shades of brown for my main image, and I'm using the E33, which is the darker brown, around the edges first. Then I'm going to go in with my E00 to add the inside and blend the 2 colors together. Now I'm also going to add some highlights of orange stripes to this cat to make him look a little more fun. But as I mentioned, you can customize this cat for whoever is lucky enough to get your card. Now once I've finished coloring the cat and adding the stripes, I'm going to color in the Christmas lights. Now if you prefer, you can always match these Christmas lights to the lights on your card, or you can just use random colors, so it depends on what you would prefer. Those stripes just make this kitten really cute. So for the Christmas lights, I just used 2 shades of the same color, a darker and a lighter, and blended those 2 together. Now for the lights, instead of coloring them with Copics, I decided to use my distress inks for this. And what I did is I just used a darker and a lighter shade of the same color. So for the purples, I used Dusty Concord and Wilted Violet, and I just blended these 2 together. Now I put all of my colors on the same page, and I'm going to stamp on top of these. You could use different pieces of paper for each color, it's up to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the same paper. So now I'm going to use some pinks. So I used Pick Raspberry and Warren Lipstick for my pinks. And the reason why I wanted to use distress inks today instead of coloring the lights with my Copics is because I wanted my lights to look like they were very vibrant and they were glowing. And you can't quite beat the vibrancy of distress inks. Also, instead of die cutting an image and getting a white area around it, I thought this way you would have a nice glow around the lights instead of that white space. So for my greens, I'm using the new Rustic Wilderness and Twisted Citron. And because this is a newer ink pad, my foam dauber is not quite saturated enough. So it takes a bit more effort to add in that Rustic Wilderness, the dark green there. So once you're happy with the blends and you've done the colors that you would like, you can make sure this is completely dry by drying it with a heat tool. So whenever you stamp on an inked background, you risk smudging it, so make sure it's completely dry. So now I'm going to use some VersaFine black onyx and stamp my images. There's a larger and a smaller light in this stamp set. And what I'm doing is I'm positioning the light so that the darker color is at the bottom or the back of the light, and the lighter color is at the end, the pointed end. Now you can repeat this for as many lights as you like, and then I'm going to do some with this smaller light bulb as well. And once I'm finished, I'm going to die cut it with the coordinating die cut. And because I used the distress ink to color in these light bulbs, I will get this beautiful effect of color around the light bulbs as well as on the actual light bulbs, so they look like they're glowing. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of Copic coloring on the light bulb base, which only takes a few seconds. And what I'm going to do is add in 2 colors of gray. So I've got my C7 that I just add in on the edges, and then the C5 on the middle, and then just blend them together. Now I'm going to apply some glossy accents to the light bulbs so that they shine. And my favorite way of doing this is using a bit of low tack tape. I use Post-it tape, and I'm just adhering it to my desk with some washi tape. So the sticky side is pointed up, and I'm just putting my die cut lights onto the sticky bit. This will hold my die cuts in place so that I can add some glossy accents to them. And once I've covered the lights in the glossy accents, I can just lift up the whole piece of Post-it note tape and put it aside to dry. Now you might notice some other colors of light bulbs that I added in. So the light yellow, sort of yellowy orange light bulbs, that is the antique linen distress ink, as well as some wild honey mixed together. And the blue light bulbs are some peacock feathers and chipped sapphire distress ink. All right, so now it's time to put the card together. So I'm just going to glue this black piece onto my finished card base. The finished card size is 8.5 by 3 3/4. And I just used a piece of A4 paper, which I cut and scored. Now I'm going to adhere my cat image and just place it where it looks good and put something heavy on it until it's completely dry. Now, depending on the size of your card base, your image might look better in a different spot, as you'll see on my other example at the end of the video. Now, the best way to apply the lights on the card is to use some foam squares. But if you get these really thick ones, these ones are 3 millimeters thick, you can just put the foam square on the end with the light and put it right on your card base and it will stand up. What I mean is the foam square doesn't have to cover the whole die, it just covers enough of it so it attaches it to your card. So I'm going to randomly put these lights all over the string so it looks like a string of lights around this cute little kitty. And I'm going to add in some tiny lights as well and some larger lights, and just varying the color until I'm happy with it. Now the sentiment for the front of the card just says a Christmas hello, and this is from the same stamp set, and I just stamped this in white ink and then put it on black paper to give it a bit of a frame, and then white paper around that. Now I'm going to adhere some little jewels on my card, just in random places and random colors, and that will just add a finishing touch to the front of the card. Now the glue that I'm using is the same PVA glue, so this will dry clear and it sets quite quickly. Those lights look just gorgeous on this card. I'm really happy with the way it looks. So now for the inside of the card, I'm going to add a sentiment from the same stamp set. And this says Meowy Christmas. And there's also some little images of a candy cane and the holly and a little miniature light bulb that I'm going to add in. And I'm just using the black VersaFine for this. Now I hope you get the whole effect of those shiny lights on this card because it's just beautiful. And here's the other card that I created as well. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you found it inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!